You are listening to No PC Allowed, aka No Political Correctness Allowed, and I am Mac Iverson. The midterms are coming. But why is this so important when it's 2 years away? Actually, it's already about a year and a half away. Much less time than that when you consider all the prep work that needs to be done. To be more precise, the midterm elections have already begun. And if you're not involved, you're already behind the 8 ball. That's how fast things move on the political landscape these days. It seems to be a sprint, but it's a combination sprint and marathon. As elections encompass practically every experience that we encounter day to day, that means it is outrageously foolish to ignore the process that has been laid out before us by our founding fathers. All 435 seats in the House will be up for election. Approximately one-third of the Senate's 100 seats will be contested. These seats are significant because the Senate holds the power to confirm judicial nominees, approve treaties, and influence our foreign and domestic policies. Now, we hear this every single time, but these are the most important elections of our lifetimes. They truly are. The stakes just keep getting higher and higher. Look at what Trump has done. He has advanced the ball so far down the field that the enemies of freedom don't quite know what to do with themselves. If the Democrat Party continues on as they have, they will grow more and more irrelevant, and they won't stand a chance of making any headway in 2026. However, if someone reasonable and halfway sane within that party decides to stand up to all the woke holes, that could very well slam the brakes on everything that the Democrats were expecting to achieve before the last election. That slamming on the brakes might cause the Democrat Party to buckle and split rather violently. In fact, it would be the end of the Democrat Party if any transition to a more moderate stance was not done extremely carefully. Again, the two most likely scenarios as of today are that the Demon Rats will change too slowly so as to keep their loyal base from tearing apart, or they will moderate too rapidly, which would cause an irreparable rift that could even create a third party. I'm all for either of these scenarios happening because I hate the Demon Rats. I cannot begin to tell you how important the 2026 elections are. If the Republicans lose the House and Senate, then Trump's wild-eyed ambitions instantly become moot. Trajectories are that the Republicans may well hold on to the Senate, but the House is another story entirely. Losing just the House to the Demon Rats would be disastrous for the Trump train. In spite of how he may sometimes portray himself, Trump is not a one-man show. It does not work that way in the United States of America. Here's the main thing. Because Trump's focus is largely on the forgotten man, the forgotten man must, therefore, get involved to make his cause truly front and center. Complaining about life's hardships does nothing to alleviate them. What we're embarking upon has never really occurred in human history, let alone American history. I hate the word democracy because America is not a democracy. We are a democratically elected constitutional republic, but what we're embarking upon is the great democratization of humanity. It starts with America, but if successful, it will spread to the ends of the earth. How could it be otherwise? All 195 countries on earth will eventually line up to get their fair share. We're not talking about the elites, because the elites always get their fair share, and then some. Rather, we're talking about those forgotten men and women throughout human history who've always yearned for, but have never quite achieved what they fully deserve, what they truly deserve. Some people call this populism. I hate that word, mostly because I think it sounds like popular. But what's true and what's popular seldom mesh. And what's good for the forgotten man is rarely popular. The forgotten man is the unpopular one. So how can populism save him? Many cynics will say that human nature always drives out the good of any reform eventually. But in all of human history, massive reform movements which have never reverted back to the old ways can be counted on both your hands. Therefore, to deny the rarefied scope and power of the Trump train revolution is sheer madness. I'm not even talking about the explosion of artificial intelligence, which seems to coincide with this and may in fact have some driving factors, motivating factors involved with Trump's success. And I've got my criticisms of AI. However, AI may turn out to be a complete and utter boondoggle, as well as robotics. This remains to be seen. These are not foregone conclusions. This from Stuart Rothenberg on rollcall.com. Voters who are angry are more likely to express their feelings than those who are content with the current state of affairs. Midterms always tend to turn out more upscale voters rather than voters who have less education and lower income. That could benefit the Democrats in 2026, as they have recently been winning the votes of college graduates comfortably, while Republicans are winning over non-college graduates easily. Republican strategists argue that their House members are battle-tested and know what it takes to win. There may be some truth in that, but it's also a fact that Trump has one midterm election under his belt, and he didn't do so well, losing 42 GOP House seats in 2018. Rothenberg continues, It's likely that the Trump administration will cause plenty of chaos. That's how the president likes to operate. But it's far from clear how the country will react. The House, like the country at large, is almost evenly divided. That's not necessarily a prescription for dramatic change for the chamber in 2026. But Democrats need only small gains next year to make House Majority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York the Speaker. Unquote. So why are the libtards up in arms over Elon Musk's ledger? The Education Department has a budget of about $280 billion a year. Less than 25% goes to teaching kids anything. So where does the other $220 billion go? It goes to a bureaucracy. It goes to a consultant, and then that consultant donates money back to the Democrats, and then that money grows. When it gets big enough, that big ball of money goes to a different consultant, and then it goes to an NGO. It just gets bigger and bigger. This is money laundering, and it's money churning at its absolute most efficient. People say the government is inefficient and wasteful. No, it's not. It has the efficiency of the mob, the mafia. And you can look at almost every single agency, and you'll find this money churning. And so the brilliance of Doge isn't that Musk is going in and cutting spending. He doesn't have that kind of authority. We're the ones who have the authority to do that. What we need him to do is come up with a report, go through agency by agency, identify every single program that has this money churning as its main purpose, and then shut them all down ASAP. This will eventually drain the swamp. It's funny. The dummy rats are saying Trump's tax cuts are going to the billionaires, so why does that make them unhappy? That just means the money is going to donors who will funnel it back to the Democrat candidates. Only major campaign reform can fix this. A reviewer on FoxNews.com wrote, "The prices are coming down, albeit slower than people want. There is a very large mess that requires some cleanup in aisle Biden." This is true. Morons who insist on overnight changes are considering punishing Trump by not voting for MAGA conservatives in 2026. How stupid can they get? The larger our congressional majority, the faster these changes will happen and the longer they will stick. Part of the problem is that dishonest flanking maneuvers are being used to go after the dumbest Republicans with ads like those from Save My Care. Thousands of radio and podcast ads are being run from a guy named John who claims to have worked for Trump. He says that some Republicans are trying to gut Medicaid, which is politically insane. This is the deep state's way of trying to outflank and fool many moderate, naive Republicans. The ad ends with a plea for the listener to call their representative. Who has money to waste on such a meaningless and transparently deep state paid for ad? Soros and his minion associates, that's who. The Rhino sponsor Save My Care is a paper-thin cover for the deep state's desperate, waning influence. Believe it or not, even factcheck.org rated this as fact-check false. The stated Republican plan is to review, fix, and preserve those programs so that they're financially solvent for the long term, not to gut them, which would be obvious political suicide in the year 2025. This from Newsweek.com. It's against this backdrop that VoteVets, a so-called progressive veterans organization, this week unveiled a hard-hitting new television ad featuring veterans who've lost their jobs as a result of Musk and the Doge endeavor. The spot features a group of veterans sitting around a table, sharing their experiences and struggling with the fact that they were fired for reasons that don't make sense. At one point, viewers hear a veteran say, "I did not put my life on the line for some tech bro billionaire from South Africa to come in here and try to destroy our country." Another added, "It feels like veterans are being personally attacked by Elon Musk. At no point in the commercial do viewers see or hear the words Republican or Donald Trump. And it's likely that this was intentional. The gambit runs the risk of letting Trump remain above the fray, but operatives in the party believe that damage to Elon and Doge will ultimately hurt the president since he turned much of the government over to the Tesla CEO." Unquote. Where is this propaganda coming from? These are paid for by the disguised deep state, not true Republicans. These are indirect hits as opposed to the more honest, direct hits conservatives use against the libtards. We're not sly and sneaky because we have scruples. We do direct hits on the lying lefties. That's because they're such easy targets. Speaking of Elon Musk, I'm not his biggest fan, partly because he is, as of today, still unable to keep his ex from shadow banning many podcasts, including this one, No PC Allowed. I went from nearly 4 million views for just one 20-minute podcast last summer to only a few hundred a few weeks later. I have not seen one review since that time. Not one review. It's like I've become invisible. He has not fixed the algorithms. Either that, or he's failing at preventing the green and purple-haired woke losers working over at X from targeting me, mostly because of my anti-LGBT WTF stance. Nor does Musk or his staff respond to any of our emails. So much for free speech. Having said that, he greatly fears for his life. He, just as much as Trump, has stuck his neck out not to curb the deep state, but to destroy them. And these global criminals are striking back at him with a vengeance. Don't think these attacks on Musk and Tesla aren't largely coordinated by the global mafia. They absolutely are, because they stand to lose their investments. That's just common sense. Democrat poll numbers are lower today than when they tried to uphold slavery in the 1860s. And their arrogance is similar to extremists on both sides during the Civil War who insisted that it be their way or the highway. Such perfectly matched intransigence is always fuel for division and bloodshed. I fully support that division between right and wrong, because today we have to destroy the evil left. Cooler heads could have prevented the Civil War, but both sides were convinced that they were 100% correct, and neither side could wait for gradual eventual reform. Right or wrong, those implacable attitudes gave us the Great Civil War. Today, we may be spreading towards that same conclusion. Also, elections are very different from just 10 to 20 years ago. Like the Civil War years, there just isn't going to be those large turnarounds anymore because so many are set in their politics. The leftist media doesn't have a monopoly on information anymore. Without the U.S. aid money being funneled back to the demon rats, the Republicans might have a chance. And these are pretty good odds. Republicans see 26 Democrat seats as vulnerable, while the Democrats only see about 5 Republican seats as weak. But the crybaby left still doesn't get it. They love to emote, "There's a complex web of connections to fired federal employees, and a multitude of others will face extreme hardship, too, as a result." Thank God, Trump is cutting down the Department of Indoctrination. How do 5 administrators for every teacher affect so many others? It doesn't. It's a whopper of a lie. 5 administrators per teacher is obvious deadweight, and so they all need to be fired. There is an inverse relationship between spending money on these woke clowns and dumbing down America's kids. The more we spend, the dumber our kids get. Dummy rats are always thinking selfishly about their jobs, not doing their jobs, but keeping their jobs. If all this government waste is obviously so horrible for America, then they should start to get excited about their new careers and whatever. They may end up making more money in Trump's private sector. A lot more. But they're scared to death of Trump because they don't believe in supply-side economics. Libtards have a pejorative for it. They call it trickle-down economics. The big players win the most, and the table scraps float down to the rest of us. Yes, there's a reason for that. They work harder, smarter, and take more risks than the rest of us. So kudos to them. I'm not anti-wealthy. I'm anti-credentialed class of untalented, overrated, wealthy snobs who think they're better than us because they have Ivy League degrees. Trump is betting heavily that the Roaring '20s will change everyone's perceptions, even the loser lefties. Reagan was hated and feared by many on the left in 1980. 4 years later, it was morning in America. Blue-collar Democrats went ape-poop cray-cray over Reagan. They loved him, and he won what Trump can only dream about, a massive 49-state landslide. Trump wants a return to that kind of America. That's why he proudly hangs an imposing portrait of Reagan in the Oval Office. And he's smart enough to know that it can only come from a massive stormfront of magalicious maneuvers from his volunteer army of stormtroopers like you and me to shock and awe the rest of America back into life again. Trump knows we need this because America is not united like it was in 1984. We are divided like never before, even more than during the Civil War. Think about it. Americans were all shockingly similar back then, North and South. But now, differences of opinions between left and right are often at 180-degree odds and light years apart. It's like our different sides are from different planets. This is not healthy, and this cannot stand. It is mathematically impossible. Jesus said, and Lincoln echoed, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." So there must be a clear winner and a clear loser in this fight of diametrical oppositions. If America loses in the midterms, meaning the demon rats take over, then Trump will be relegated to a mere transitory place in history, and he will not be remembered except as a desperate Hail Mary in the final 2 seconds of the game between liberty versus left-wing fascism. And then Orwell's nightmare will finally take root, probably permanently. Because of the establishment of AI and robotics, they can act as the new SS, these new, low-cost, too obtuse to feel the pain of guilt mechanisms for tyranny. Humans won't do the torture. Robots and super smart AI can do them because they will be programmed to have no conscience. No mercy upon the unforgivable sinners, those protesting against the demon-controlled state which claims to have your best interests at heart. Its icy, robotic heart, made of cold tungsten steel. And that's great for the growth of tyranny because in the case of a humanist rebellion, and if the humans win, then these non-sentient beings will be the only ones to face the new Nuremberg trials for their war crimes against humanity. But who ever heard of hanging a robot? So high-tech becomes the scapegoat Frankensteins for their human enablers who are lurking behind the iron curtain of deception. High-tech reforms non-transparency and lack of accountability into high art. From thehill.com by J.T. Young. For these next elections, the history is clear. From 1938 through 2022, the president's party has a record of only 2-20 when it comes to net seat midterm outcomes. Only George W. Bush, back in 2002, saw a gain of seats in both the House and the Senate. In 2018, Trump suffered a dramatic 40-seat loss in the House that ushered in 2 years of hearings and investigations and 2 impeachments. So why won't the 2026 midterms hold to historical form for Democrats? For one thing, the last 2 elections, 2022 and 2024, have been disappointments to both parties when it comes to winning seats. In 2022, Republicans did not reap nearly the House windfall they expected, although they did narrowly win the House. In 2024, Democrats failed to flip it back. One of the reasons for these recent bipartisan disappointments is that gerrymandering in the House, or redistricting to a radical degree, has reached such an art form that there simply are not that many seats in play anymore. And as to 2026 specifically, the map is not as favorable to Democrats as it first appears, unquote. If Trump has 50 seats in the Senate, he will still be able to confirm appointments, most importantly, judges. 2026 is literally the most important election of our lifetime because if the Republicans lose the House, the Trump train will run out of gas. It could be the last legitimate election in this country, perhaps forever. Look no further than the January 6th fiasco. They want to put us all in prison. All the deep state has to do is come back from the dead like the horror icons Jason or Freddy Krueger and start wielding their deadly blades to slash the heart and soul of conservatives. And the next time, there will be absolutely no quarter given, no mercy. This will probably usher in the end times age of revelation, which may coincide perfectly with a timed global takeover from AI, along with the rapture of the church. The onus is now totally upon you, dear listener. If the forgotten man is to finally be remembered, then he, meaning you, must take actions to make him worthy of being remembered. This is your revolution of consciousness. But if you don't speak up, no one will listen, because no one's saying anything meaningful. So this becomes your opportunity. What an amazing time in history this is. What a time to simply be alive. At this time and this place, here in America. Never before has the forgotten man had such a larger-than-life character than President Trump fearlessly fighting for him, for me, for you. You must remember this. No reform will last until Americans start to get serious about their places in life. Christ is not central in most churches. Pastors' egos are. Chapter by chapter, verse by verse, is the only way for the bride of Christ to lead. If this does not happen, then the Trump revolution will end up meaning nothing very quickly. True, lasting freedom cannot survive unless our population controls its evil, selfish impulses. Only Christ-centered morals must lead us. Stupid, evil, selfish, woke took over because churches were more concerned with clinking pieces of silver in the offering plate than God's word. No one in the media is talking about this election with the urgency that it deserves. No one except me that I know of. That's only because it seems early, but it's not. It's late. The early bird gets the worm. Action step. The 2026 midterms are already nipping at our heels. 80-some weeks from now is like tomorrow in politics. Needless to say, you must become a permanent activist for this new America. Full or part-time. Active for you, your family, and our future generations. It does not matter what you do, just do it. Don't think about it, just do it. And do it now. Take some small step this very second to make it habitual every single day for the rest of your life. Make phone calls, knock on doors, send texts, donate time and money, write, blog, podcast, anything, everything. Remember, as a Christian nation, we are doing this as an act of free will to honor God. Don't you want to meet Jesus and hear him say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord." You don't want to hear, "I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness." You've been listening to No PC Allowed. I am Mac Iverson. We will meet again next week and every week.